June 23, 1944. Northern France, 3 miles behind Allied lines. Private First Class Arthur Shilstone, 603rd Camouflage Engineers, stood in a wheat field inflating a 30-ton Sherman tank with a bicycle pump. 23 years old, art school dropout from New York, now tasked with the most surreal assignment of World War II, making the Wehrmacht believe an entire armored division occupied this sector when only 400 men with rubber props stood here instead. The pump hissed. Canvas stretched. Within 18 minutes, what looked like American armor emerged from nothing. Shilstone stepped back, studied the angles. From 200 yards, it was perfect. From 50 feet, it was obviously fake. But German reconnaissance wouldn't get that close if his team did their job right. In the next 48 hours, this deception would anchor the northern flank of the breakout from Normandy, convincing German commanders that Patton's Third Army was preparing to attack northeast toward Calais instead of racing south toward Paris. The Ghost Army's performance here would save thousands of American lives and change the course of the war in ways that wouldn't be declassified until 1996. This is the story of how artists, sound engineers, and stage actors became the most effective tactical deception unit in military history. If stories of courage and ingenuity move you, please like and subscribe. Every subscription helps us honor the memories of those who served. Arthur Shilstone grew up in Brooklyn, studying illustration at Pratt Institute. 1941 found him painting advertisements for Macy's department store, designing window displays that made cheap merchandise look expensive. The deception was legal, profitable, and boring. Pearl Harbor changed calculations. Shilstone enlisted January 1943, expecting infantry combat. Instead, Army intelligence noticed his portfolio during processing. "We need artists," the recruiter said. "Special assignment, can't tell you more." March 1943, he reported to Camp Forest, Tennessee, where the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was forming. The briefing was classified. Create a unit that could impersonate entire divisions using inflatable equipment, fake radio traffic, and theatrical deception. Make the enemy see armies that didn't exist. The unit assembled an unlikely roster: fashion designers from 7th Avenue, radio engineers from NBC, set painters from Broadway, sound technicians from Hollywood. Most had never fired a weapon. Their equipment included rubber tanks weighing 70 pounds, inflatable artillery pieces, dummy aircraft, portable speakers capable of broadcasting tank noises at 120 decibels, and costumes, shoulder patches from every division in the European theater. Standard military thinking called it absurd. How could fake equipment fool professional German intelligence officers trained to assess Allied strength? The answer lay in understanding how reconnaissance worked. Aerial photography from 15,000 feet, forward observer reports from 2 miles out, radio intercept analysis. None of these methods could distinguish a 30-ton steel Sherman from a 70-pound rubber replica if the deception was staged properly. Shilstone's first training exercise failed completely. His inflatable tank collapsed in 15-mile-per-hour winds. The patches were sewn on backwards. A general observing from a jeep recognized the deception within 5 minutes. "Private, you just got 10,000 men killed," the general said. The training intensified. By June 1944, Allied forces were preparing the breakout from Normandy. Operation Cobra required concentrating armor for a massive thrust through German lines, but this concentration would be visible to Luftwaffe reconnaissance. German commanders needed to believe American strength was dispersed across multiple sectors, preventing them from reinforcing the breakthrough point. Standard doctrine offered no solution. Real divisions couldn't be in 2 places simultaneously. The Allies lacked sufficient forces to occupy every sector with genuine strength. German intelligence was competent. They counted trucks, tracked radio transmissions, monitored unit movements. Photographic interpreters could identify equipment types from shadows and track marks. The 23rd received orders. Make the Germans believe the 2nd Armored Division occupied the northern sector near Lessay, while the real division prepared for Cobra 30 miles south. Every manual said this was impossible. German aerial reconnaissance flew daily sorties. Their photo analysts examined negatives under magnification, counting vehicles, measuring shadows to determine equipment weight, tracking the same positions across multiple days to establish patterns. Forward observers with binoculars watched for movement. Radio direction finding stations triangulated transmissions. Intelligence officers called the plan fantasy. You couldn't fool professionals with rubber toys. They were all wrong. What Shilstone and the 603rd Engineers discovered that June morning wasn't about perfect replication. It was about exploiting the assumptions built into German intelligence procedures in a way that contradicted everything tactical doctrine taught. The Germans expected to see what experience told them would be there. Division-size formations occupied specific geographical patterns, exhibited predictable radio signatures, generated characteristic vehicle noise, left particular track patterns in mud. The Ghost Army would provide all these signals, knowing analysts would interpret them through the lens of expectation. June 21st, convoy movement began. Genuine 2nd Armored vehicles drove north toward Lessay in daylight, deliberately visible to aerial reconnaissance. That night, under blackout conditions, the real tanks reversed course and headed south. Shilstone's team moved in with rubber replacements, positioning them in the exact locations the genuine armor had occupied. But inflatable tanks were only one element. The full deception required layered authenticity. The special effects team, sonic deception specialists, positioned speakers in tree lines. They had recorded genuine tank companies, engine starts, track noise, radio chatter, maintenance work. These recordings, played at 120 decibels through directional speakers, created the acoustic signature of armor movement audible to German listening posts 2 miles away. Radio operators from the 31 1/32 Signal Service Company broadcasted fake traffic using call signs and procedures matching the 2nd Armored Division's patterns. Every transmission was crafted to sound authentic. Position reports, supply requests, maintenance logs, commander conversations. German radio intercept stations heard an active armored division coordinating operations. The display engineers created vehicle tracks. Real Sherman tanks weighed 30 tons, leaving distinctive tread marks. Shilstone's team used plywood templates mounted on jeeps, driving back and forth across fields to create track patterns matching genuine armor movement. Officers wore 2nd Armored Division shoulder patches, visited local towns, talked to civilians, made themselves visible. The psychological operation extended to the human level. Germans questioned French civilians about American troop presence, and those civilians reported seeing armored division soldiers exactly where the Ghost Army positioned them. June 23, 7:42 a.m. First light revealed Shilstone's handiwork to German aerial reconnaissance. Luftwaffe Aufklärungsgruppe 123 flew their morning sortie, photographing Allied positions from 18,000 feet. Their cameras captured what appeared to be a full armored division, tanks in dispersed defensive positions, artillery batteries, half-track formations, command posts. The photographs went to German intelligence headquarters at St. Lo. Photo analysts examined the images under magnification. Shadow lengths indicated heavy vehicles. Track patterns matched American armor. Vehicle spacing followed U.S. tactical doctrine for defensive deployment. The analysts had seen hundreds of genuine American positions. This looked identical. They marked their maps. 2nd Armored Division confirmed at Lesse sector. But the deception had to survive sustained observation. German intelligence wasn't stupid. They cross-referenced multiple intelligence sources. Radio intercept had to corroborate visual observation. Forward ground observers had to report the same presence. The acoustic signature had to match. Every element had to align. Shilstone worked 18-hour days maintaining the illusion. Inflatable tanks required constant attention. They deflated slowly in heat, needed repositioning to match changing light conditions, had to be moved periodically to suggest tactical adjustments. One tear in the canvas would collapse the entire prop. The sonic crew rotated recordings to prevent pattern recognition. Real tank units exhibited variable noise, maintenance at different hours, sporadic radio traffic, irregular engine tests. Playing the same recording loop would trigger German suspicions. They mixed recordings from different tank companies, adjusted timing, inserted random elements. Radio operators maintained continuous traffic. Real units generated approximately 40 transmissions per hour during active operations. The ghost operators matched this volume, using code books captured from genuine 2nd Armored documents to ensure linguistic authenticity. German intercept analysts heard tank commanders requesting ammunition resupply, reporting mechanical issues, coordinating with infantry, exactly what a real division would broadcast. The first crisis came June 24th. A German patrol probed the northern sector, approaching within 300 yards of the fake positions. If they got closer, the deception would fail catastrophically. The sonic crew responded instantly. Speakers blasted recorded engine noise at maximum volume. The psychological effect was immediate. German soldiers heard what sounded like a full tank company starting engines. They withdrew, reporting heavy armor presence. But they also reported not seeing the tanks directly. German intelligence faced a decision: trust visual and acoustic intelligence suggesting armor presence, or trust one patrol's incomplete observation. They chose the pattern over the anomaly. Every other indicator confirmed armor presence. One patrol's incomplete report was dismissed as poor positioning. What made this deception revolutionary wasn't just fooling German intelligence once. It was sustaining the illusion across multiple observation cycles while the deception generated tactical consequences. June 25th, German commanders reviewed Allied positions. Their intelligence showed the 2nd Armored Division threatening their northern flank near Lesse. This wasn't a minor concern. American armor could break through, envelop German positions, cut supply lines. They had to respond. General Lieutenant Dietrich von Koltitz, commanding LXC's Wurf Corps, faced impossible choices. The Allies were clearly preparing a major offensive somewhere. But where? Intelligence showed strength at multiple points. His reserves were limited. He couldn't reinforce everywhere. The presence of the 2nd Armored in the north appeared decisive. That division was elite, experienced, dangerous. If they attacked, his northern flank would collapse. He ordered reinforcements. The 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich would redeploy to counter this threat. This was exactly what the Ghost Army's deception was designed to achieve. The real 2nd Armored Division was 30 miles south, preparing for Operation Cobra. By June 25th, they were in position for the actual offensive. The German reinforcements were in the wrong location, responding to an army that didn't exist. Shilstone didn't know about the strategic impact. He was focused on immediate problems, replacing a torn tank canvas, adjusting speaker positions because wind had shifted acoustic patterns, repainting unit markings that had faded in rain. But he noticed something. June 26th, real German artillery started shelling his positions. The fake tanks took hits. Canvas exploded. Rubber burned. This was terrifying, but also validation. The Germans believed the deception so completely they were wasting ammunition on rubber props. The fire missions continued intermittently for 3 days. Each barrage destroyed Ghost Army equipment but confirmed the deception's success. German artillery doesn't waste shells on empty fields. They were shooting at what they believed was genuine armor. July 25th, Operation Cobra launched. The real 2nd Armored Division, along with concentrated Allied forces, smashed through German lines near St. Lo. The breakthrough succeeded partly because German reserves were malpositioned, pulled north to counter the Ghost Army's Phantom Division. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops had accomplished something unprecedented, an entire corps-level deception that directly influenced enemy strategic decisions. They had convinced German intelligence for 18 days that a full armored division occupied a sector where only 400 men with rubber equipment operated. The statistical impact was measurable. Operation Cobra casualties were 30% lower than predicted. The breakthrough achieved objectives 2 days ahead of schedule. German counterattack forces arrived late because they were redeploying from the wrong positions. All because Shilstone and his team had made rubber tanks look real. But the operation also revealed the limits of deception. July 27th, advancing American infantry overran the Ghost Army positions near Lessay. French civilians, seeing the inflatable equipment for the first time, were shocked. Word spread. German intelligence eventually learned they'd been fooled. The question became, would the deception work again? The answer was yes, but with adaptations. The Ghost Army conducted 21 major tactical deceptions between June 1944 and March 1945, each one refined based on lessons learned. Operation Brest, September 1944. The 23rd impersonated the 2nd Armored and 80th Infantry Divisions, convincing German defenders that Allied strength was concentrated south of the city while actual forces attacked from the north. The deception held for 11 days, resulting in the fortress's capture with 40% fewer casualties than anticipated. Operation Viersen, March 1945. The Ghost Army staged the most ambitious deception of the war, impersonating the entire 30th Infantry Division and the 79th Infantry Division simultaneously along a 30-mile front. This convinced German commanders that the 9th Army's main crossing of the Rhine River would occur at Viersen when the actual crossing happened 15 miles north at Wiesel. The deception was so effective that German artillery prepared extensive fire plans for the wrong location, wasting ammunition and revealing battery positions. Lieutenant Colonel Clifford Simonson, commanding the 603rd Engineers, developed doctrine for rapid deployment. His unit could move in, establish a divisional-scale deception, and make it operational within 6 hours. This speed was critical. German intelligence updated position assessments every 12 hours. The Ghost Army had to establish credible presence before the next reconnaissance cycle. Sergeant Victor Dowd, sonic deception specialist with the 31 132nd Signal Company, refined the acoustic library. He recorded tank companies, artillery batteries, infantry movements, engineering operations, building a catalog of authentic sounds that could simulate any unit type. His innovation was understanding that Germans listened for specific audio signatures. A Sherman tank's engine had a distinctive pitch. American trucks shifted gears in particular patterns. Replicating these precisely was more important than volume. The deceptions evolved into a systematic methodology. intelligence officers identified where Germans expected to see Allied strength. The Ghost Army provided those signals. Actual forces maneuvered to locations Germans weren't watching. By the time German intelligence updated their assessments, the real American units had already achieved surprise. German intelligence eventually developed countermeasures, but the process took months. Oberst Friedrich August Freiherr von der Heide, Fallschirmjäger commander and intelligence officer, wrote post-war that his analysts first suspected deception operations in August 1944 but couldn't prove it. "We observed units that appeared, disappeared, reappeared elsewhere within timeframes that logistics made impossible," von der Heide noted. But confirming deception required closer observation than aerial reconnaissance allowed. Ground patrols that attempted verification were repelled by genuine rearguard forces. We faced a choice: trust our intelligence collection methods or assume the Americans had somehow revolutionized mobility. We chose the former, which was the wrong decision. The critical German error was assuming their intelligence collection methods were immune to manipulation. Photo analysts trusted what cameras showed. Radio intercept operators trusted transmission patterns. Acoustic specialists trusted sound signatures. The Ghost Army exploited this trust by providing every expected signal simultaneously. When German intelligence finally captured documents referencing the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops in February 1945, the revelation was strategically useless. By that point, Allied forces were across the Rhine. Even knowing about the deception unit didn't help German commanders distinguish between real and fake deployments. The Ghost Army's techniques had become sophisticated enough that verification required ground-level inspection, which Allied defensive positions prevented. The Ghost Army suffered remarkably low casualties: 3 soldiers killed in action, 18 wounded, despite operating in combat zones for 11 months. This statistical anomaly reflected their tactical positioning: always behind front lines, always protected by genuine security forces, always ready to withdraw if German units approached too closely. But the psychological cost was significant. These soldiers fought a war where victory meant convincing the enemy they existed in strength while knowing they possessed no genuine combat power. If German forces called their bluff and attacked, they had no defense beyond retreat. Private Jack Macy, 603rd Engineers, described the constant tension. "We were pretending to be dangerous while being completely vulnerable. Every night, sleeping next to rubber tanks, you wondered if German commandos would discover the deception and raid the position. We had rifles, but we weren't infantry. Our job was theater, and theater doesn't stop bullets." The unit maintained operational security so strict that families didn't learn what their soldiers actually did until declassification in 1996. Letters home couldn't mention inflatable equipment, sonic deception, or tactical operations. Shilstone wrote his parents he was doing engineering work in France, which was technically true but deliberately vague. Post-war, many Ghost Army veterans returned to creative professions. Shilstone became a noted illustrator, his portfolio including work for National Geographic and Life magazine. The skills learned staging military deceptions, understanding how observers interpret visual information, manipulating perception through careful detail placement, creating believable illusions under pressure, translated directly to commercial illustration. The Ghost Army's operations raised questions that weren't fully addressed during the war. Was tactical deception fundamentally different from legitimate military operations? The Geneva Convention addressed perfidy, soldiers using enemy uniforms to commit violence, but said nothing about using fake equipment to manipulate intelligence assessments. Some officers argued the deceptions were legitimate ruse de guerre, no different from camouflage or nighttime movement. Others worried that sophisticated deception operations undermined the trust necessary for eventual surrender negotiations and post-war reconstruction. The practical answer was that tactical deception saved lives on both sides. Operation Cobra succeeded with fewer casualties because German defenders were malpositioned. German units wasted resources defending against phantom threats instead of concentrating forces where actual combat occurred. The inflatable tanks absorbed artillery fire that would otherwise have targeted real American positions. By March 1945, when the Ghost Army conducted its final operation, the strategic situation had evolved beyond needing tactical deception. Allied forces had overwhelming numerical and material superiority. The unit was preparing for redeployment to the Pacific when Germany surrendered. Arthur Shilstone returned to Brooklyn in October 1945, resumed his illustration career, and never spoke publicly about his war service until 1985. His children didn't learn he'd been in the Ghost Army until they found photographs of inflatable tanks in his attic decades later. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was deactivated September 1945. Records were classified, veterans were ordered not to discuss operations, the unit's accomplishments disappeared into sealed archives. For 50 years, military historians studying the European theater found references to deception operations but couldn't access details. Declassification came in 1996, revealing the full scope: 21 major tactical deceptions, cumulative coverage exceeding 3,000 operational hours, estimated effect of diverting German forces equivalent to 10 to 15 divisions from actual combat zones. Analysis suggested the Ghost Army's operations shortened the European war by weeks, saving thousands of Allied lives. The technical innovations, portable sonic systems, rapid deployment inflatable vehicles, coordinated multi-spectrum deception, influenced modern military doctrine. Today's tactical deception units trace their methodology directly to techniques the 23rd developed in 1944-1945. But the broader impact was demonstrating that warfare could be won through intelligence and creativity rather than just firepower and mass. The Ghost Army proved that 400 artists, actors, and engineers with rubber props could achieve strategic effects that armored divisions couldn't match. Shilstone died in 2004, age 83, having spent 6 decades creating illustrations that made products look better than reality. He understood the fundamental truth he'd learned in that French wheat field in June 1944. Perception matters more than objective fact when you control what the observer sees. The Germans saw armies that weren't there. They believed the evidence. They made decisions based on that belief. And they lost. The Ghost Army's techniques influenced Cold War strategic deception. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, U.S. forces deployed inflatable SAM sites and dummy radar installations to complicate Soviet targeting. Desert Storm in 1991 saw extensive use of decoy vehicles and false radio traffic to mislead Iraqi intelligence about coalition force concentrations. Modern military doctrine recognizes tactical deception as a force multiplier. The Army's Field Manual 313.4, Army Support to Military Deception, incorporates principles the 23rd pioneered: multi-spectrum deception, exploiting enemy intelligence collection patterns, sustaining illusions across multiple observation cycles. The Ghost Army received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2024, 79 years after their operations. 3 surviving members attended the ceremony. They stood, aged 98 to 102, remembering the war where artists became warriors and rubber tanks changed history. If this story moved you, Recognize that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't what kills the enemy, it's what makes them look the wrong direction while the real fight happens elsewhere. The Ghost Army proved that deception, executed with precision and creativity, can achieve what divisions of armor cannot, making the enemy defeat themselves through their own assumptions.